today. I'm kind of jealous that you're in Florida and I'm stuck in Boston. It's been so cold lately.
Oh my goodness. It was around 85, 83 today, and we have multiple kids here at the house, and with the corona pandemic, sometimes it gets a lot of multiple kids inside and all that. So I was like, I'm going to get my son, we're going to go outside today. I really wanted to. It was so hot and sunny. I was like, let's just keep watching Disney Plus. We'll just keep rocking that today. You know what I mean? So we stayed inside. But how's everything with you? Everything good? And with all the this madness going on and everyone that you know close to?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much just stuck inside with the whole quarantine. Like I just mentioned, back in Boston, it's almost May, but it feels like the beginning of November. It's very wishy-washy as far as the weather. Like literally, we've been having snow off and on, and this morning it's been very cold and raw and rainy.
Right.
So unlike you guys being able to go to the beach and go outside and get a tan, we are stuck inside. That's why I look like a pasty Casper ghost right now.
I love it. Love it. Oh my goodness. All right. So there's so much. We're gonna have fun. So much to get into. Kind of, I guess I love starting at the start. I'm a big Avenger guy. I'm big into origins and how Iron Man was created. So how did Boss Babes come to be? How did you become a podcast? When did this connection happen? And when you're like, yeah, we're doing this. We're getting a microphone. We're gonna talk and see what happens.
Very cool. So I sort of have an interesting background, and I'm sure we'll hit different points of that throughout this interview. But Boss Babes actually started about around this time last summer. It was after a really bad breakup of mine, and I've always loved sports and entertainment, and I wanted to try to figure out how to combine the two. So my co-host and I, Emmeline Reed, we are both news and sports reporters in the city of Marlborough, which is in Massachusetts.
Right.
Her and I kind of came together, and we were like, you know what, Britt, screw it. Let's just pull the trigger and start your idea. And ever since we started our show, it kind of just slowly has been taking off. And the whole premise of it is we go behind the scenes with sports entertainers. So we've had on UFC fighters,
Right.
NFL cheerleaders, the Gronkowski brothers. We basically give people an inside look to the athlete's life. But then a big part of our show, which I absolutely adore, is we cover local charity events. So if the Patriots are having something, or the Celtics, or the Boston Bruins, we like to go out, cover that event, showcase what they're raising money for, and basically show people how athletes give back to the community. Kind of interesting.
No, that's awesome. Very, very cool. I love that. We had a really big MMA grappling show a year ago in Pensacola, Florida, and it was all for a Bully Proof Foundation. We raised a ton of money for it. Really big UFC fight. George Masvidal and Anthony Showtime Pettis came. It was a great cause. So I'm with you. I love it. Great work. Really, really, that's great stuff. So much you said there. I can go so many different ways. Let's stick with the UFC. It's kind of where I saw you. Charles Rosa was on our show as well. And we put something out there, and then he reshared it, and then he did the same thing with you. You were like, hey, he's going to have him on after UFC 249. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let me just check it out. I hit it, saw it. I listened to the whole podcast, and you guys were there at TD Garden for his fight and all that. So I was like, awesome. And I was like, okay, let me reach out. It's this how it keeps on going. It's how the chips keep falling. So how did you create the relationship with Charles? Were you guys always UFC fans, or was that more of a Boston thing, or how did that kind of create?
So kind of interesting, actually. Let me back it up a little bit. So I've also always been into sports. As a kid, I played multiple sports, big softball player, played travel softball, played a little basketball, a little bit of field hockey. And with that, actually, in high school, I was the wrestling manager. So I was around wrestling all the time. I used to be the one that would keep track of the athletes and what they were doing. So before we get into Charles, I'll actually talk about, he's actually on the upcoming fight card too. I'm very good friends with Calvin Kattar.
Right. Nice.
Yeah, him and I went to high school together. He actually owns a fight league in the Boston, Mass area called Combat Zone.
Yep.
So him and I were actually supposed to do a charity event together, but everything has been getting shut down due to COVID-19. But essentially, I loved MMA because I used to be a ring girl back in the day. I also used to follow wrestling. And now flash forward with UFC, you want to switch back over to Charles Rosa. I just randomly sent him a DM back in October. I knew that he was coming in the area. I also loved the fact that he was from New Hampshire. He's actually from Seabrook, which is 15 minutes where I actually live.
His nickname is Boston Strong. Like, come on.
Boston Strong Rosa. He actually gave me a T-shirt. So
there you go.
He came into town. He actually did his fight, did very well. Obviously, he won. The kid that he actually fought, Manny Bermudez, I believe was his name.
Yep.
Sorry, it was so long ago. He was actually from Massachusetts as well, so it was good to see them compete against each other.
Wow.
But ever since that fight, Charles and I became really good friends. Whenever he's in town, we hang out. We went ice skating during Christmas time. We FaceTime each other very often. He's just a really cool, down-to-earth person. He also has his own charity that I'm sure you're familiar with. He helps shed awareness to people that are battling opioid addiction. And he's also a chef. He went to college right in Rhode Island.
Best. Oh my God, he's incredible. That was we had him on the show, like I said, probably 3 weeks ago when this first or 4 weeks ago. Wow, I don't even know what day it is. It's Monday, Saturday. I don't know. You know what I mean? They all gel together.
They all blend together.
I know it's what month is it? I don't know. But we had Rosa on, and the first thing that's what we talked about 8 minutes was how to marinate chicken. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, we'll get into fighting later, but this is the people, and that's one thing I love about your show. I listened to 3 episodes right away. It's like, how many times can we ask a fighter how is their camp, or a baseball player how is spring training? Like, no, like, dude, what's your favorite movie? What do you do before a game? How does relationships affect your baseball playing? Whatever that is, it's like I love more stuff and hypothetical stuff and just behind the scenes, like what you're doing. It's great stuff. It's a really, really good show.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I can't wait to listen to more of your shows. Obviously, you just reached out to me yesterday, so I'm gonna have to go back and listen to some of your stuff on iHeart. But I love that you're focusing on MMA. It's such a great sport, and you seem like you've had some awesome people on your show, so I'm very excited to tune in as well.
Appreciate it. Okay, so when you met Calvin in high school, you were saying you went to the same high school. Did you know that he wanted to be a mixed martial artist? Because I would guess that was like around 10, 12 years ago, maybe in that range. Like the UFC wasn't what the UFC is now. Now Reebok, ESPN, mainstream, it's huge. It's my uncle knows UFC. Back then, it was a little bit more, to the left. You know what I mean? It wasn't as big as it is. So did you know that he wanted to be a fighter, and what did you think of that?
Actually, back in the day, he didn't really talk too much about it. As you're mentioning, I don't even know if UFC really was a thing 10, 12, 15 years ago. I know that he really enjoyed the sport of boxing.
Okay.
So I know that different MMA athletes, some of them prefer jiu-jitsu, some of them prefer grappling, some of them prefer wrestling. Calvin was always more of, he liked to punch people in the head. Actually, I have an interview with him because I go to a lot of events with him for Combat Zone.
Okay.
And I literally did an interview with Calvin, and he said, Britt, you know what? Half the time I do, back in the day when I used to do my wrestling meets, I knew that if I could have punched him in the head, I probably would have won more of my matches. So he's likes to stand up and throw those punches at his opponent. So I don't think he really knew he wanted to become an MMA fighter. I think he thought maybe he was going to become a professional boxer, but because he was so good at wrestling, obviously the natural thing would be to turn into a mixed martial artist.
Right, for sure. And like, it seems like everyone I talk to about that, there's a fine line when they're like, hey, am I going to be a professional boxer or a mixed martial artist? And Floyd Money Mayweather makes $1 billion, but like, he's the very top of the top one guy. And it's like so hard. And even Floyd took 12 years to get there. Like boxing, there's not a lot of money down. Like, Calvin's doing great for himself. He's a high level fighter, been in the UFC probably 3-4 years now. And, he's making legit money. Seems like there's more money lower on the UFC side than there is in boxing. So I think he made the great choice, and he's got a huge fight Saturday night, UFC 249. It's going to be huge. Jacksonville, Florida. Going to be fun. Okay, so I really want to talk. This is great. My wife is big Boston fan.
I love that.
I'm a Yankee, New York Knicks, Ranger. I'm an all New York guy. Then when we moved here to Florida, I'm actually a Florida Gator fan. My wife is a huge Red Sox fan and Bruin fan and Patriots fan.
So you guys are kind of split down the middle.
Oh yeah, it's great. It keeps the house going for sure. As a Boston fan, what have been some iconic moments? What can, throw out some memories? Has there been a game or a team or a player that you've been connected with for a year, 3, 5, 10 years? What's been some Boston moments that you have that we don't?
So this is kind of interesting. It might sound kind of cliche, but I feel like Boston has so much sports history in general. Of course, actually I have a sign behind me that says Believe in Boston. It looks like the Celtics logo.
I love it.
Growing up a big sports fan, I've always been that person that would, back in high school, back in college, whenever we won like a championship, I would cut out of class and go to the parade. So I've been to a Red Sox parade. I've been to a Bruins parade. I don't think I've ever been to. Actually, I did go to a Patriots parade. I think the only parade I haven't been to is the Celtics one yet. But yeah, I have a lot of fond memories as a kid watching sports with my dad. He's the one that got me really involved with sports, even playing sports. But as far as like connections with athletes, I'm good friends with a lot of athletes in the area, just from me personally being on TV and doing so many interviews and being involved with the media. Some of my best friends are actually the Gronkowski brothers. Rob and I actually did a TV show back in 2012 called The Choice. It was like a fun little like dating show. You guys can probably Google it. It'll probably pop up. It was interesting. We became really good friends after that. I know his girlfriend Camille very well. She's also local. She's Sports Illustrated swimsuit model now. But I'm very good friends with his brother Gordy Gronkowski. Him and I go to events together all the time, and we hang out as friends. And we recently, when Rob came out of retirement, actually, I hit him up and I go, Gordy, I know you probably can't say that much, but is your brother really coming out of retirement? And he kind of just like winked at me and liked the comment. And I was like, I know you can't really say anything yet, but are you moving or not? And he was like, no, Britt, I'm going to stay in Quincy. I'm going to move somewhere else. So that he kind of like gave me the hint of, yeah, they're definitely leaving, but I'm going to stay in the area somewhere.
Wow. So with that, before you maybe even finish, or if you're close, how is the feeling right now with Tom Brady, the most iconic to me Boston-y player, the greatest football player ever to live, the greatest Patriot ever to live, and Gronk? To me, at an outsider, I love Gronk, and I'm like I said, a New York guy. He's fun, very entertaining. He plays very hard. How can you not like Gronk? So, like, as a fan of football, I'm like, dude, these guys are awesome. And now they're both coming to Tampa, to Florida. My home state is. How is Boston dealing with this? How are you guys dealing with Gronk and Brady gone?
Honestly, I will be honest with you right now. So
that's all we take here on the show is honesty. That's it. That's all we do.
I was waiting for him to make his decision. I felt like he was just dangling us like a piece of meat in front of a hungry lion for a month and a half.
Okay.
So I was just waiting for him to make the decision. I kind of obviously didn't know if he was going to stay with New England, or I had a feeling he wasn't going to retire. But basically, the news came out when I was down in Florida. I was actually at spring training because my boyfriend actually plays for the Toronto Blue Jays. So I'm down there, and I literally get the information that Tom Brady no longer is playing for New England, and I get the information that there's no spring training because of COVID-19. So I'm like, what the heck? Double whammy here.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So basically, I'm sitting there and I start like bawling my eyes out. I'm like, oh my God, there's no more Tom. There's no more Tom. I think now I've come to the conclusion that, you know what, I'm happy that he left on his terms. He's probably going to play for a couple seasons. Then he'll come back, sign a one-day contract, and retire as a Patriot. Like at the end of the day, he's not an actual, as much as you guys want to believe it, he's not a Buccaneer. He's actually a Patriot. He's going to make some extra coin and retire a Patriot.
Right, for sure. And that's at the end of the day, all this sports, media, and you probably know this more than anyone, it's all about relationships. It's all about connecting with people and talking with people and getting some inside access and that kind of nature. And it just seemed like from an outsider, again, and you guys are there, and maybe you have some inside information or not, but it seems like the relationship was burnt with Tom and the Patriots. It just seemed like there was some disconnect. Respect is such a main factor in any relationship, with work or you're a significant other. Like, respect is such a big thing. It just seemed like he felt a little disrespected, and he just wanted to go to somewhere to be respected and loved and cherished a little bit. And he came to Florida, where old people retire. It's what he's doing. So, but it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be nuts. It really is.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm waiting for the schedule to come out so I can start buying some season tickets.
Yeah.
I'm actually excited because you probably know Major League Baseball is going to be split up potentially into different, Central, Eastern, and Western. So I might be, or the guy that I'm dating might be stationed down in Florida, near Tampa. So I'm like, we're going to be definitely going to see some games for sure if this pans out the way that I want it to pan out.
Awesome. If that does, hey, we're getting together with the studios 2 hours away from Tampa. We'll do some podcasts. You guys can record there. We'll have fun. We'll definitely do it.
Yeah, for sure. I'll have to keep you updated. Again, we don't know what's happening with the MLB season, but there's a good shot we might be down there.
So, you mentioned a couple times with COVID-19 and, it really the UFC and they're the first sport back. Basketball just paused. Boston's a really good team in the Eastern Conference and the Lakers are great. It would be really cool to kind of get that together. That's just that iconic basketball. Baseball never got started and with spring training. How has COVID-19 affected you and, your career and media and sports and just everyone that you're, associated with?
That's actually a really good question. So I have been so down in the dumps. I've had to have my friends uplift me because, again, having sports be such a big part of my life. As you know, you seem like you're a big sports fan. Not having sports for a little bit over a month now is so draining. And I'm not even making this up. I'm not even just saying this to make myself look good because I'm on a sports podcast right now. I literally have been watching old Bruins games, old Red Sox highlights, Googling Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez highlights, anything I can to keep myself entertained because there's just nothing to watch. And I genuinely love sports and I love the hype and I love watching other people get excited. So it's just, it's been really bummy, I guess, without having sports. And aside from not being able to watch them career-wise, yes, I'm actually the on-court host of the Maine Red Claws, which is the Celtics affiliate.
Okay, that's awesome.
So that actually just randomly stopped out of nowhere, which kind of stinks because we were about to go to the playoffs.
Yes.
And I was really excited to be hosting those games and doing all the fun stuff with that team. So yeah, out of nowhere, I basically lost all my reporting jobs. Haven't had any sports, so yes, it's been pretty difficult.
It has. It's been, and now, we were talking beforehand. It has. It's just been the whole life has just kind of been put on pause. And this is one thing I kind of wanted to get into, so it's kind of perfect. It's that's why I get paid the big bucks, I guess. It's so wild with podcasts. One thing that I love so much about it is, I have a studio. I can record on the road. I can record where I'm recording this right now. It's just, that's what's so great about podcast. It's anywhere with anybody at any time. I can put it on so many different platforms. This will be on YouTube and iHeartRadio, and they love what we're doing. Apple Podcasts for, iPhones and everything. There's just so much content that you can put out, and there's not I have to go to this game, like you said, or I have to do this, or my radio station's closed. I can't get there. Back in the day, there used to be vinyl records and then CDs and cassettes. And I think the wave of the future, no doubt about it, is podcasts. And with you guys, with Bos Babes, how much have you guys thought about, I know you want to keep doing the reporting stuff on the courts and stuff, but maybe going a little bit more all in with the podcast because it's wow, stuff like this can happen. Or, the Celtics could go in a different direction and they hire someone else. But my podcast will always be here. I can create content and then, get sponsorships or even just get enough, subscribers and get value for it. So my question is, how all in are you guys in with the Bos Babes podcast?
See, I think this is a really good, interesting conversation. And if people that are interested in our career or the media field should listen in to this answer. So one of the other big reasons, other than my breakup, for starting this podcast is not only was I wanting to do this idea for a while, I also didn't want to have to rely on, like you're mentioning, TV stations because you sign a year or 2 year contract and then they're looking for the next best thing. Or I didn't want to have to move out to Montana to go to a small town city or market. Right. So I basically said to myself, hey, you know what? If I start my own brand, if I start having people follow and liking what I do, eventually, hopefully it takes off because I already kind of have a following from being on reality TV. Maybe I can kind of be somebody that sets my own pace and can be in charge of what I do and not rely on other people. And also, I kind of always had this idea where I don't ever want to be a stay-at-home mom, but I'm 31 years old. When I have kids, I don't want to put my kids in daycare. I want to be that mom that's around and takes them to sports. And if I can have a podcast show and maybe be the sideline reporter for the Red Claws like I'm doing now, I can still have that flexibility to make money and be creative because I love having that creative outlet without having to rely on a station.
Right. No, that's great. That's exactly what I made this decision years ago. And of course, kind of like the generic answer is, of course, always in podcasts with Joe Rogan. He talks who he wants to talk to. He sits where he wants to sit in his studio. He records when he wants to record. It's just like this. uplifting, freedom to, hey, it's his show. He controls it. It's his content. There's not a boss saying, hey, get him or her or them on the show. There's a really great freedom and a creative outlet. It's unbelievable. We do so many different things. We talk to fighters all the time. But I have one of my best buddies in the world. His name is John Rappert. He comes in. We do like a lot of hypothetical stuff, and we do like tournament style and voting style. It's just really cool to interact with our fans and everything. So it's such a great outlet. I'm so thankful for the podcast spectrum that we're in right now, and moving forward, it's just going to be great.
I love that. I'm kind of glad that you asked me that question, because it definitely is something good for people to hear, especially if they are interested in starting their own podcast or their own show. It's definitely a great creative outlet, and it's a way to be in control of what you're doing and what type of content you're putting out there.
Right. And a question that I get all the time, after 220 episodes is like, how'd you start? What should I do? How should I do? And I give the same answer almost every time. I'm like, just start, like, just go, like, do it. I will literally send you the equipment that you need, and just start. And, you'll find a niche of what avenue you want to go to, or, if you want to be a gotcha guy, or if you want to be really slow and cool, whatever it is, like, I just tell the person, just go, and you'll find your way if that's what you want to do. Talking about finding your way, what's been an interview that you've done on the podcast or reporting that was just, you nailed it? When they or she left, you're like, wow, I nailed that one. That was a 10 out of 10. And what was one that you thought would be great? Like, oh my God, he's so great, and he's a great player. And you try to talk to him, and it's like, oh my goodness, like, he's just saying one word. I can't get anything out of him. Like, what's been a great one, and what's been maybe not so great?
So these are interesting questions too. So when it comes to my podcast, I'm actually, like you were mentioning earlier, I'm in charge of booking my own guests. So before I even get them to do the podcast, I like to do a 20-minute screening interview. That way, if they're not good on the phone, I'm not going to bother having them do a podcast, because if you can't hold a conversation, you're going to give me 1 or 2 word answers. That's not going to be good and not conversational. And I don't want to be pulling teeth to try to get your personality to come out.
Right.
So I like to screen people ahead of time. But one of my favorite, most recent interviews actually was with Paul Stewart. He's actually older. He's like in his 60s, Hall of Fame hockey ref. Like, his jersey is hanging up in Canada right now, which is super cool. What I loved about his story was that he grew up loving the sport of hockey. His great-grandfather actually, if I remember correctly, won a Stanley Cup. I believe he was one of the coaches for the Chicago Blackhawks, like way back in the day. I'm talking in like the 1940s or something, when hockey like first came about, like one of the original 6 teams.
They're playing on a black and white tube or something like that.
Yeah, you can look up Paul Stewart's great-grandfather. Like, so basically, Paul Stewart comes from a long line of hockey legends, and he told this whole story about how he didn't know what to do after he played semi-pro hockey, so he went and visited his grandfather's grave and started like bawling his eyes out and was like, "Grandpa, what do I do?" And his grandpa like led him to the decision, after praying at his gravestone, to become this hockey ref, just like he ended up, like his father did too. So long story short, he told me that whole story about being in the Hall of Fame and having cancer and battling cancer, and meeting his wife. She was a stewardess on an airplane, and how they were locked in like a hotel room, like after a game in New York. Like, he was definitely one of the most eye-opening, interesting stories, because he had just so much wisdom. He's been around the sport for so long that I genuinely really enjoyed his topic of conversation, and he has a book made as well.
Wow, that's awesome. How about one on the negative side?
On the negative side, so sometimes if I'm interviewing people at a charity event, for example, I don't have that opportunity to pre-screen them. So a lot of like current athletes, if they're still playing, they get PR trained. So they only say certain things, and they talk sort of robotic, and they're used to saying the same generic thing all the time, kind of like Bill Belichick. They only give you so much that they need to say.
Yep.
So sometimes when I'm interviewing athletes, I would say, and I love the kid, he's local too. I didn't even interview him. This was actually my co-host, Matt Grislick. Very sweet kid, very nice, plays for the Boston Bruins. But his answers were just like so generic and boring. I was just like, he definitely must have been coached by his PR to only say certain things, because it was just very generic and didn't really give much.
Right. And it's funny you say that because it's such a hard spot nowadays with the media. It's so 24/7 and there's so many channels and they need clickbait or they need those buzzwords on the bottom of a show so two guys can talk about it back and forth. You want people, and I always say this to, oh my, like, I want them to be who they are, go for it, say whatever you want, let's have fun, let's take left and right turns, whatever it goes, it goes. But then, like, if they do, some of those players do that and they say a sticky word that is not right or politically correct or goes the wrong way, like, a lot of these players, they just get blasted and they get blasted.
And they spin the stories on them.
Right. Exactly. And it's like, I don't want to help people in this house because they might have COVID-19 and I want to protect my family, but they just say, oh, I don't want to help people. And that's all they say. You know what I mean? It's like the media really does spin it around, close. So I get it to a certain extent, but I'm not like that. I want the most entertaining, fun. I love stories. Because you have stories that only you have, and you have this amazing night. I even heard, like, on the Rosa one, you were saying that you guys went out afterwards and you guys went to a cool club. Like, those are only stories that you have that no one else has. And it's just like, I love grabbing out of people,
Yeah, Rosa and I hang out a good amount, actually. Me, him, and his brother are actually all pretty close. Actually, Rosa, I don't know if you mentioned this on your podcast, but his brother Lucas just moved down to Florida with him, and he's actually training him to potentially become an MMA fighter as well. So he's very close to his family, and they all do a lot of fun stuff. And like I said, whenever he's in town, we try to get together and do something fun. He loves to cook. He loves to eat food. He loves to go to the North End in Boston. Just a very nice, sweet, kind-hearted, down-to-earth guy.
He's great. He really is great. That's awesome. Kind of a fun question all the time, and I don't think I've asked this on the female side, is you said Rosa was training his brother. If you had a daughter or a son, especially maybe even a daughter too, let's bring that up. We just had twin girls. We had twin girls on New Year's Eve. And people ask us this all the time.
Congrats.
Like, thank you very much. Thank you. And then there's a local gym we go to all the time, and it's like our family that we go to all the time. And MMA and UFC is so hard and sometimes pretty brutal. Would you let your son or daughter train to become a professional fighter?
That's such an interesting question. I don't know. It's one of those things where when I have kids, I definitely want them to be athletic. I actually always joke around and say, when I have kids at the baby shower, I'm going to ask for a set of cleats and an agility ladder. Yes. Because I want to get them up and going, like, right away.
Right.
As far as what sport they play, I'm going to kind of give them options on what they want and sort of like try to tell them you could do this, you could do that. Maybe let them know that some are more dangerous than others, but ultimately let them choose. And if one of them did want to become an MMA fighter, that's such a tough question. I wouldn't necessarily want them to do it because I know that it is very dangerous. However, if they wanted to try it out, I'm not going to say no because what if they're destined to be a great MMA fighter? Who am I to tell them not to do it? So it's one of those things where if they're driven naturally to do it and if they're subconsciously drawn to a certain sport, kind of like you're drawn to your podcast and I'm drawn to doing what I've been doing my whole life, you got to just let somebody follow their natural abilities. So I guess my answer is yes and no.
Right.
That makes sense.
No, great answer. I think you were great with it. Guys, we're talking with Brittany Baldassari, Bro Babes, brobabes.com podcast. I got it on Apple Podcast, even the Bos Babes on Instagram. Your IG is Brittany Baldi, Baldi, right?
Yeah, it's the shortened version of my last name. It's like the shortened version of it used to be my sports nickname. People would be like, "Let's go, Baldy, woo!" And it was on the back of my softball helmet and stuff like that.
Nice. We got to get that story next time. I would love to do this again. We'll go like 2 hours, an hour and a half, and just go all in old school stories, MTV stuff, old school. I do have one kind of last fun, good question for you. Could go an hour. I don't know. If we do this podcast 5 years from now and everything goes right, your career, all the dots cross, where are you in 2025? What are you doing? What's your dream goal career spot?
Oh my God, this is such a good question too. Dream goal would be, obviously I'd love to be married and have kids because I don't have that yet. Hopefully find the right guy. Maybe it's the guy that I'm dating now.
There you go.
I would love to have a sick man cave set up at my house. So it would be not only an entertainment spot. I actually posted about this online today on Facebook. I talk about it all the time on my show too. My ultimate goal is to have a sick man cave where you have a really cool bar and like the air hockey table and people come down and make drinks and watch games and just go crazy ham and whatever, but also have a studio set up in there. So I'd love to be doing my show live from there and have people either Skype in or come into the studio live, like whether it be athletes and entertainers and stuff. But I would also like to do some type of actual sports hosting as well, kind of like what I'm doing now with the Red Claws. So I would love to always be doing something creative, giving back, maybe having my own charity. Wow. Yeah, definitely getting more involved with charity and giving back and having my own type of creative outlet. And kids and getting married. Oh.
Let's go.
Who's wiping it up? There
you go. Hey, give me his IG address. I'll talk to him after this. Give it.
Toronto. She's the one.
Hey, man cave, like that was your first go-to. Like your first gut reaction was like, yeah, I want a man cave in my house. I'm like, gee whiz, this is unbelievable. You said something I really want to talk to you too, real quick. You said something about being live. We record in 4 different ways. One, we can always do an old school phone call. Sometimes that's really good because you can really connect a little bit on phone call, but there's a really big thing about seeing someone and seeing if they're happy in the conversation or they really like the question with their eyes and face and all that stuff. 2, there's a couple of different streaming stuff that you can go live and stuff. And I used to go live a lot if it's on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, and that's great and all, but sometimes the audience will ask, and I'm not trying to, I love our audience and everyone that listens and subscribes. Thank you. But sometimes they ask questions or they maybe mess up with the flow of what you and I are having. You know what I mean? And they ask maybe, hey, who's your favorite Celtic ever? It's like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, it's just Eric-y stuff said it like really deep, good conversation questions. So I was like, I'm kind of getting off on that. My favorite by far, and we do have the studio here in Daytona Beach, is live. There's nothing like it when we've done it with multiple fighters come in the studio, one fighter, having that conversation for an hour and a half, lay back, get a cold drink, and just really, just talk, just have a conversation. There's nothing better than having a live podcast. So that's funny that you say that's kind of a way you want to go, because I think that creates the best content. I do.
Yeah, for sure. Like the way that we do our show is we live stream it through Facebook, but now we're starting to turn it more into a podcast as well, the way people can have it on the go. So although it does live stream, we are currently on Spotify and we are on iTunes. I don't push it as much on iTunes and Spotify. You guys can check us out on there if you want to. But I think the live stream is kind of interesting because, like you said, you can watch people's reactions live or ask a question live if you want. But there's options out there to view my content and your content and a lot of different content.
For sure. There is. There's definitely a ton of different options. It's so crazy that I love technology. With this corona pandemic, it's literally been Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, Netflix, on a loop. We're just circling loops. And, I was
going to say, let me ask you, did you watch that stupid, I refuse to watch this stupid lion show that everybody keeps talking about. Did you watch it?
Tiger King.
King. Yeah, I don't even know what it's called, but I see so many Facebook statuses about it that I'm just like, I already know what the show's about and I'm done and it looks stupid. Why are people so into it?
Okay, so if this is my 2 cents to you, if you want to, and just kind of, so you're in the communication, I would watch the first episode, skip 2 through 7, watch the 8th. So you kind of get the show in the first. The 8th is the twist and the ending. It's like, okay, I've seen it all. And it's a train wreck. And
you watched it?
Oh yeah, we watched it. Yeah. We have 3 kids locked in a house for 44 straight days. We watched it. We went all in, and I think we did it in 2 nights. But it's such a train wreck, and the characters are so loony, and that's why like a lot of me and my wife, we watch Below Deck all the time. That's like one of our favorites, and it's a little bit of the same thing. There's like, sooner or later, the host and the cook, they're going to fight. That's just what happens. You know what I mean? They do it every year, and then they fire the cook, and then they get a new one. So, it's a train wreck. We love it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wanted to ask because I haven't watched it, but I keep seeing people talk about it.
Yeah. Dude, I'll save you 6 hours of your life. First episode, last episode. You'll be fine.
Sounds like a plan.
Awesome. Really do appreciate your time, Brittany. First time Definitely we'll get you back on again. Continued success. Hopefully the pandemic ends very, very soon. You get back to work. The Celtics are a great team. They're going to have a really good run in the Eastern Conference. Hopefully the Blue Jays and your boyfriend have a really good year too. They're a young team. They're on the rise, so hopefully they'll have a good year.
Oh my God, I have an interesting fact about that. I don't know if you want to hear it. I
Sure.
literally found out, and he didn't even tell me, he freaking broke an MLB record, and he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. I'm like, babe, were you not going to tell me this?
Wow, I like this. Okay, what's his name or what's the record?
Yeah, so I'll tell you guys that story. So super interesting. So let me backtrack a little bit. So we met back in January during his off season. He came into Boston. He actually went to a Celtics game with a couple of his former teammates. We all went out after. We got some Chinese food, went to a local club. We didn't really talk that much, which is interesting while we were there. But 2 weeks later, he hit me up. We exchanged numbers, started FaceTiming. Very sweet, very genuine. From North Carolina, so like a sweet, like Southern gentleman, like absolutely like so sweet. He invited me down to spring training, like we talked about a little bit earlier. I go down there with a few friends. We kind of hit it off, taking things very slow. But anyways, I was like super bored last night the other night, speaking of COVID-19, I was just looking up random MLB records, and then this kid pops up, Ryan Dahl. I'm like, I've been dating this kid for 4 months. He doesn't tell me that he broke a record. So the record is he's a relief pitcher, and he left 36 inherited runners on base.
Right.
So 36 is his the number that he left on base, and that's like the record. So he has his jersey hanging up in Cooperstown. So the other day he texts me, "Good morning, beautiful." I'm like, "Good morning. Well, you're not going to tell me that you're in the Baseball Hall of Fame?"
Oh
like, what? And then I sent him I'm like, "Why are you not going to tell me this?" He's like, "Oh, I don't know. It just never really came up." I'm like, "Babe, what?"
I love this. That I'm not gonna lie, that would be my go-to. If I'm talking to a nice lady out, I'd be like, "Hey, I'm in the Baseball Hall of Fame. You want to get a drink?" That would be my go-to line.
Right?
Is he a lefty or a righty?
He's a righty. Believe it or not, I haven't been able to see him pitch in person yet because obviously with everything going on. And the day that I flew down there for spring training, it was the night before the NBA actually shut down. So when I get there, he goes, "Britt, you're going to be upset." I go, "What?" He goes, "Just like we guessed the other night, yeah, there's going to be no baseball." But it ended up working to my benefit because we got to go on a lot of dates. We went to the beach. We hung out with my friends. So I got to know him really well.
Right.
But I haven't seen him pitch in person. I've seen him pitch on TV a little bit, and I've watched his highlights. But here we are.
Here we are. Well, awesome. I'm very happy to have you on. You can come back anytime you want. Maybe like I said, if Boston's having a good run in the postseason, we'll have you back on. And good luck to you. Good luck to the podcast. You guys are killing it. Really love it. The content's great. The banter with you and your co-host is awesome. Keep it up. Just have fun with it. You guys will do big things.
Oh, thank you so much. I love everything that you guys are doing too. And when you get the link, let me know. I'll share your podcast as well.
Absolutely. We'll send it to you. We're going to drop it, I think, Monday. If you're listening to it, it is Monday. We've had a really great week. And Monday's the best day of podcast. I don't know if you know that yet. It's a little bit.
No, my show live streams on Monday, so that's good to know.
There you go. Awesome. Brittany, thank you so much for coming on. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, David. Bye.